I was trying to figure out how to get this in. So
Guys, we are live now. All that energy. Like, people are probably watching this going, how do these guys have so much energy? You guys don't understand what's just happened. And we're not going to tell you. Well, I'm not going to tell you anyways if the rest of my team doesn't snitch on me.
I know.
You know, please don't snitch on the follow the leader.
Okay, don't be taken from the top again.
Hello. Hello and welcome to the All Things Aviation Pod. I am your humble host and my name is Daps. I am joined today by some incredible people. I've got Seth Vanbeek. I've got the incredible Nadine. If you're wondering why we're laughing and we're full of energy, I tend to do certain things on purpose. Sometimes I make mistakes and people think that, he's made a mistake. I sometimes do things on purpose. I've been doing radio for a while and sometimes you have to measure energy. You sometimes look at the time and go, well, we're about to go up in about 5 minutes. However, let's test to see how everybody feels. So you might do a little pre-recording, see where everybody's at, give a little bit of a taste of what you want to hear, etc. But anyways, Seth Vanbeek was getting into the nitty-gritty of things, telling us his incredible stories when I had to interrupt him and say, hey, boy, you might want to have to start that all over again. But my apologies, guys. But thanks for coming and joining us on our show today. We're super excited. As you can see, we're always full of energy on this podcast. This is episode number 1. We did episode 0 last week. Myself and Nadine, Seth was busy flying, but we're back again today. And just before we get into the show, we're just going to go through some announcements just to keep you guys updated with what we've been doing. The first thing to note is that we are now on YouTube. Yeah, that's right. You better make some noise for that. Like I said, we are on the YouTube. We are on the tube. And we're doing the Lord's work on there. Yes, make some. Man, this has to be the quietest audience I've ever played. We are on we are on the tube. Remember, guys, we're still chilling with Daps. We're still chilling with Daps crew. We're just doing the All Things Aviation Pod now, so we are wild. So we are on YouTube. Thank God. It's been in the making for almost 7 months. We finally took the plunge. And so we've put our content on YouTube. And going forward, you will always be able to watch our podcast on YouTube. This week, we will now be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other streaming platform where you can download your podcasts from, which is really good because if you're busy, you can listen. If you want to watch banter in the studio, you can watch us as well, which is great. The one thing that I wanted to say, though, is that please endeavor to support us as best as you can. At the minute, my humble self, Junior First Officer Seth Vanbeek, and the incredible Nadine are doing this for free. Now, we enjoy doing what we do, so it's fine. However, the support from you guys is going to go a long way in ensuring that we can get the necessary sponsorships, the right funding, which will then enable us to be able to put out more content. As far as I'm concerned, I could actually see myself doing this for a living. I know Seth enjoys flying, but we want to be able to do more. So just make sure you support us. So like, subscribe, share our stuff on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Our account is All Things Aviation Pod, spelled exactly as it sounds. ALLTHINGS Aviation AVIATION Pod POD. So make sure you give us all the follow you can on all social media platforms. And that's just basically all the announcements from me before we get right into the show. Now, one thing that I was going to note is the word pod. In an attempt for me to make the word podcast sound cool, I sort of shortened the word podcast to pod. And Nadine actually pointed out something interesting to me the other day about the word pod that I didn't realize. Nadine, do you want to quickly tell us what you told me the other day about the word pod?
The word pod.
Yes, the word pod.
At the airport is often associated with relaxation, sleep, chill out. Because at Heathrow, we have pods at the end of each stand where you go in, do your paperwork, and kind of take a breather. And we've also got chill out pods on the airfield.
Right.
Not airfield.
Right,
Airside, we've got relaxation pods.
I had no idea when I was choosing the word pod. One could say that I was one with the powers that be. Thank you. Even though you guys are not going to clap for me on that one, I'm gonna get the machine to clap for me. But yeah, man. But yeah, we're back. Seth Vanbeek is here, and Seth has an incredible story. Seth Vanbeek is the youngest qualified commercial pilot in the UK. Tells an incredible story about determination, motivation, persistence, resilience. You name it, that ends with an ends, this guy knows about it. Okay, if it ends with an ends, he knows all about it. And I think that if you're young, you want to get into aviation. I think that if you're an enthusiastic person about aviation, even if you're older and you think that maybe you're too old to get into aviation, listening to Seth will more than motivate you. Okay, I think that it would also encourage you to go for it. And we are very lucky to have Seth on our show as a co-host. As I explained last week, Seth is not going to be here all the time because Seth flies. But when Seth can be here, he will be here, and he's going to be a great addition to the show. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the incredible junior first officer, Seth Vanbeek.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, Daps, for having me on today.
You're very welcome.
As Daps said, my name is Seth Vanbeek. Apologies, I wasn't here last week. Duty was calling, but we're here today, and let's make the most of the time that we have together. I'm a corporate pilot, flying corporate jets around Europe, interacting with people I never thought I'd interact with in my life. People from football legends to multi-billionaires, multi-millionaires, businessmen. And it's been an interesting ride, to say the least, my journey in aviation. So let's rewind about 10 years back to a 10-year-old boy sitting in an airport, looking at a captain and his first officer walking through the terminal with loads of girls surrounding them. So what do you think was the first thing going through my mind? It was, oh gosh, that seems like a cool job. Having loads of girls around you and traveling the world. As a young boy, it seemed amazing. There was no better career for me than getting paid loads of money to travel the world. And eventually, as I grew older, it started to be like, what makes a plane fly? What are the wings for? Surely they're not there for decoration. How much thrust goes into an engine? What is the process behind an engine? Surely it's not just taking air and kicking air out the back with nothing happening. And then I'd rush home after school to catch the daily episode of Air Crash Investigations. And then that started to broaden my horizon. Before I even started flying, I started to understand how a stall works, the type of airflow over the wing, different situations. And little did I know, these situations would later help me in my flight training in the simulator. So my journey in aviation officially started 3 years ago in April of 2018. But it started before that, when I was about 12 years old and I told my mom, I'd like to be a pilot. So back at that time, I was in Zimbabwe in Africa, being raised by a single mother. And for everybody who knows about aviation, you know that to train to be a pilot, it costs ridiculous amounts of money, anywhere up to £150,000. Now, there's a fact that says most people £150,000 in their lifetime. So when I told my mom, I want to be a pilot, she's like, oh, that's fair enough. But little did we know that it would take a massive chunk of money to trade. We thought it'd be like university, maybe £20,000, £30,000, and you can get loads of student loans. But that wasn't the case in aviation. So we began looking for flight schools at about 12 years old. I started looking in America, and I found a flight school that I liked in Florida. So we said, okay, yeah, let's go for this one. This one seems good. So time went on, we were set on a certain flight school in America. And it came now to the time to start the registration process, start going, looking at visas. And the night before, we were meant to pay some fee to start the official process. It was about 11:30 at night, and we were in London, in the room with my gran. And my mom's like, Seth, are you sure you want to go to America at 17 years old and leave home? So we're like, yeah, let's do it. And then my gran's like, guys, it's 11:30 at night. Wait until the morning and then make the payment. It's not going to be a big difference. I think that was a godsend, because that night my mom started to do more research about the flight school and found out that there were loads of hidden charges, loads of charges. So the fee that they were saying was only basically for your theoretical training. So you still had to pay for aircraft hire. You had to pay for instructor fees, landing fees. So potentially an extra $30,000 to $40,000. Now, when my mum read that in the morning, we picked up the phone to the guy and we're like, sorry, mate, is this true? And he's like, yeah, it's true, but we didn't have it on the website. Now, that's a lesson for all aspiring pilots out there. Don't just jump in to a flight school without doing the full background research, without finding out, are they hidden costs? Are they this? Are they that? What does the fees cover? Is accommodation included? What is the service record of your aircraft? I'm sure we'll do a podcast about that in the future, about how to find the flight school and what needs to be done. So fast forward from that, we then started looking again. So after 4 years of work, we found the flight school. We're like, yes, this is the one. We're now back to zero. So we're like, do we continue in America? Do we continue in Europe? And I was the first person in aviation in my family. So as you can imagine, our aviation knowledge was probably at -50. It was non-existent. We didn't know anything about finding a flight school, or we didn't know anything. And eventually, I then Googled, where is the best place to find, or where is the best place to train to be a pilot? And it came up 3 places. I think it was like Greece was number 3. And we're like, okay, Greece. Then 3 flight schools came up in Greece. Bam, bam, bam. And we're like, okay, number 3, it's Europe. We can live in Europe. Let's go to these flight schools. So a few weeks later, we booked flight tickets to those flight schools with my mum. And we went to view them. The first one, we didn't see any students. And we're like, a school should have students, right? For it to be a school. And then eventually we were like, okay, let's go see the next one. The next one was literally like an office at the top of a building. We didn't see any aircraft. We didn't see any simulators. And we saw about 5 students. So we're like, a flight school, but with no aircraft? That surely can't be a flight school. And then we went to see a third one. Similar thing. We didn't see any students. So we went back to the first flight school and they're like, yeah, let's take you to do your medical tomorrow. And we're just going along with it. We're like, yeah, we're not 100% confirmed. We'll do the medical and we'll see what happens. So that morning we were delayed to get to the medical for some reason, or the next, I think it was the taxis and the English barrier between us and the Greek people. So we got there about 10 minutes late and the guy's like, in aviation, you have to be timely, blah, 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 blah. We can't take you for the medical anymore. And then eventually we spoke to him like, listen, we're in a foreign country. We don't know how to call anyone. We don't have taxi numbers. We tried to walk. We tried taxis, and this is why we're late. And he's like, okay, fine. But take a note that in aviation, you can't be late. You always have to be on time. And we went to the medical place. He took us in central Thessaloniki. We did it. We were going through the medical, and we got to, I think it was the eye place, because you have to check your eyes, and the initial medical. And we saw 2 guys sitting down, 2 guys from Oman. And my mum's like, sorry, guys, where do you train? And they're like, oh, we're at a flight school in Kavala. This is a city about an hour and a half away from Thessaloniki. We're at a flight school in Kavala, and we started asking them questions. How is the flight school? Have you seen the aircraft? How does it look? And they started describing to us, yeah, it's fairly big. There's a ground school facility on the beach front. It's got 3 classrooms, a cafeteria downstairs, an office downstairs for the instructors. There's a reception desk. There's a welfare officer. And we're like, okay, this sounds a bit more like a school. So we got the contact number for the guy. His name was George. And we called him. We're like, hi, George, we've got 1 day left in Greece. Can we come to see your flight school in the morning? And what does it cost? So he's like 80,000, 85,000 euro or something for the 18-month course, excluding accommodation. Now, our budget was about 40 to 50,000. And this was almost double. So we went back home and we sat in the hotel room, and I was like, Mum, there's no point in going. What are we going to go for? We can't afford it. It's pointless for us to go there. And she's like, Seth, I just have a feeling. I've not seen the flight school. I don't know anything. But I have a feeling, I've been praying, and I feel that we need to go and see this flight school. Up until the morning, I told her again, I was like, Mum, we can't afford it. There's no point. We'll go there, fall in love, and then it will be heartbreak that we can't go and train there. So she's like, you know what, Seth, let's go in faith. We trust God, and we go there. So we got up, we jumped into the hire car, driving the whole way. We're both praying. We're like, God, if this is the place, show us. So we got there, and before we even entered the flight school, my mum said, Seth, this is the flight school. Before we even walked through the door, before we saw anyone, we walked through to the flight school where the aircraft were. We saw loads of aircraft on the apron, and there was a receptionist lady. She came to greet us with 2 gift bags, put us in the lounging area. And she's like, oh, the chief pilot will come out to see you shortly. He took us around the flight school, went to see the aircraft. We went to single engine VFR aircraft, single engine IFR aircraft, multi-engine IFR aircraft. He switched it on. And as you can imagine, the aviation enthusiast inside of me was jumping. We then went to the ground school facilities, saw the ground school facilities, and like, yeah, you have to do an entrance exam, blah, 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 blah. And my mom was like, yeah, he can go down and do it now. There's no problem. Just send him downstairs. He'll do the exam. At least we know. So without any preparation, they sent me downstairs and I did the exam. I think I got like 85, 90% across the board for all of the exams. So afterwards, we're speaking to the main guy of the flight school. I forgot the name of his exact role. And then he was like, yeah, Seth should be good. He's done really well in the entrance exams. We see no reason. So we went home and we're like, okay, this is the flight school. And the fees were crazy. So my mom had sold the family home prior to this. So before all of this happened, before looking for flight school, she had sold the family home for my training. And then she's like, okay, this is much, much more than we budgeted for this. And she's like, Seth, this is the money I have from our family home to pay for your training. If you go, you have to be serious and you have to make it work. So we managed to negotiate with them to be like, okay, please could you include the accommodation in the price and maybe knock off $5,000. So it was about 70 something or 80 grand, close to 80 grand just for the training. And then in April, I set off to Greece. 17 years old, raised in Zimbabwe. Now, as you can imagine, it was a very, very difficult experience. In a foreign land with old enough to be my dad, everyone was older than me. And because I was young, everyone looked down on me. They're like, he's young. Just the usual stuff. When you're young, everyone expects you to be incompetent. And that's one thing I always encourage people. Because you're young, it doesn't mean you're incompetent. And I'm someone who doesn't deal well with people looking down on me. I'll work my butt off until I get better than the exact person who made me feel incompetent. So that's what I did. I got there. I studied. Bear in mind, throughout my whole high school, I didn't study. I just went through high school, taking exams, passing for the first time to study. So I had to teach myself how to study. I had to teach myself how to iron clothes. I had to teach myself how to cook. I had to learn everything afresh while dealing with being away from home. So I got there. Week 1 came. I got some rep in the school, some XP for being the smart guy, answering the questions in class. Week 2 came. And then I completely annihilated the class in everything to do with aviation. I learned everything inside and out. Any question the instructor had, I answered it. And then even the top person of the flight school went back to the sales guy to tell him, please find more people like Seth to bring to the school. And he went and told my mom. And he's like, please don't tell Seth. We want Seth to get a big head. And knowing my mom, she called me and she told me after ground school. So we went on, continued going. And about 3 weeks into it, I was known around the school for top performance, for being a top achiever, that my class used to come and ask me, Seth, how do I do this? How do we solve this? And then we went into flying and it was the same thing. My CFI didn't like me because I was young and good. So anything that he could make a way to falter me at, he would. There was a time where I was landing and because I closed the throttle a bit too early, he was like, this blah, 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 blah. I made an issue and just silly stuff, guys. 2 seconds works, call it.
All right. So
Yes, bro.
that is Seth Vanbeek.
You good?
I love it.
Seth Vanbeek.
Just at home.
Seth Vanbeek answers operations. You good?
Yeah, bro, let's do that.
That's how you know.
Podcast. I'll call you in 30 minutes.
That's how you know.
All right, bro, in a bit. Ciao.
That is amazing.
Okay. I'm back, guys.
Carry on.
Where duty calls.
As you were.
Okay, so back into it. And
so this guy is making fuss about little things that doesn't even matter, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got back in and we're at flight school and I was doing well. And one thing about flight school, I was always put with instructors the students didn't want to fly with because they were very strict and they wanted the best performance. So I was like, yeah, give me them. That's what's going to make me a good pilot, flying with the people who are strict and who make it more challenging. So I flew with these instructors and Funny enough, they all love me. I flew with them, and fast forward to the end of flight school, I graduated top of my class, both flying and theory, an average of over 90% in my theory. First time passes in my MEP, CPLI, I think it's called, in my skill test, IR. And I then, towards the end of the flight school, I was flying a lot with ex-airline captains, and they would give me stupid failures that most people would expect to crash a plane in the simulator. So I'll never forget this specific flight. It was one of the last flights in my IFR training in the simulator with ex-Ryanair captain. He has over 20,000 hours. And he's like, Vanbeek, I believe you're a good pilot, but if you land this, you're a legend. That I was paraphrasing what he said. So we're taking off. We took off. I think it was like a 30-minute IFR flight between the Greek islands. And we get to top of cruise. And I get a warning message. Trim failure. Bam. So there's no trim on the plane. No, it was pitch trim failure. So I couldn't trim the aircraft. And for those who don't know what trim is, trim basically makes the control column light so that you don't feel the full weight of the aircraft over the control surfaces. So he failed that. And that's paramount when coming to land. That was failure number one. Now we're on approach. I'm overhead the airport, going on the outbound to turn back onto final. Bear in mind, it's an unprecision approach and complete IMC down to minimum. Second failure, ailerons. He failed my ailerons. So I had no ailerons, meaning that I couldn't turn the aircraft and I couldn't fully control the pitch of the aircraft. So I was like, okay, I'm going to control it with rudders. And then he goes on to say failure of, I think it was the left or the right engine. He basically gave me the failure of an engine of which the wind, so if the wind was coming from this way, he failed the right engine. If the wind was coming from the left, so that I would purposely get pushed out. So practically no way of controlling the aircraft besides rudder and an ineffective pitch in IMC. Now, it was a non-precision approach, and I was managing to keep on the profile, fighting with the aircraft. He then threw in some turbulence and icing. And then I was flying it. As I got to about just over the threshold, the second engine failed. He cut the second engine off. So I basically landed the plane with ineffective elevator because I didn't have trim, no ailerons, no engines, and rudder. And I landed the plane. He then came to me and put his hand at the back of my neck. He's like, no sweat? And I was like, Captain, this is easy. I was bigging myself up. I felt good. I was so happy. I was like, yes, I managed to do it. And then he was like, Vanbeek, today I've seen that you're a pilot. You dealt with it so well. With your level of experience in a single pilot situation, you managed to maintain your calm and land the plane. So that was one of my pinnacles on my flight training, landing in that situation. So I finished flight school, and then I went on holiday to Zimbabwe. I got a few press interviews there with the national TV, with some media company. They blew up after they interviewed me. Like, they got massive. They started doing crazy numbers on their views. And then I came back to the UK in January. I was reached out to by press in the UK, and they covered me. It was on that day, January the 15th, 2020, it was the number one trending news in all of UK, the story of me becoming the youngest commercial pilot. So if you remember, about that time, it was the story of the Iran bombing, where I think something happened and some country bombed Iran, or Iran bombed someone. There are loads of political stuff going on. But within 1 hour of the story coming out, it was the number one trending story on Apple News. It was across every press platform. Surprisingly, it was across every continent in the world. It was in the New York Post, one of the biggest newspapers in the New York. It was in all paid newspapers across Africa. It was in Europe, across Europe, UK, CNN, Asia, Singapore, Malaysia. So I had just loads of people throughout the day.
I heard it was on Mars News as well. So it traveled up to Mars.
Yeah, but also Jupiter. Some aliens are reading about it.
It was intergalactical, man. It left the Milky Way galaxy, man. Your star was seen everywhere.
It was crazy. So that day I was contacted by, and it's actually funny how I found out about it being in the news, because the night before, the company that we're working with, They said, oh, yes, Seth, it's going to be in one newspaper. And in the morning, my cousin phoned me and he's like, bro, your face is all over the internet. I was like, what do you mean my face is all over the internet? Because in the morning, I woke up, had hundreds of notifications on my phone. I was like, what is going on? So I went through, I had to start sifting through everything to find the press companies. I got reached out to by some of the biggest newspaper and TV, radio companies, BBC, ITV, Channel 5. I did multiple interviews with them. I did live TV, primetime with Channel 5 News. I did primetime radio with BBC. I did primetime TV with BBC. And there's so many, I've even forgotten some of them. Wow. And then in the evening, I was going to get a haircut because the following day I had Channel 5. So I was like, you know what, let me go to Channel 5 looking fresh. So I was getting a haircut and I was walking up to my barbershop and I saw a message from a lady at a massive airline in my DMs. I was like, what are you doing in here? So I opened it. It was a long message. I read it. She's like, Seth, she was the talent acquisition manager. She's like, Seth, I've read about your story and I'd love to have you come down to our head office. We'll be delighted to meet you, delighted to speak to you. And we'd love to get to know you. And I jumped at the opportunity. They were like, yeah. So 2 weeks after that, I went down to the head office and they absolutely loved me. It was like an informal interview. And I spoke to them, met with them, met the training captains and all of that kind of stuff. And one of the guys actually said, Seth, I wish we could recruit you now. But because of equal opportunities, they're not allowed to employ without an active campaign. So they said, yeah, we've got our campaign starting in April, around that time. Once that happens, send your application in. And I was like, yes, I'm going to get into my dream airline. And then, as we know, March 2020 came and boom, the pandemic hit. The pandemic struck and aviation ground to a halt. And I was probably in the worst position anyone could think of. My mom sold our family home to fund my training. I'm a newly qualified, inexperienced pilot in the industry. So it was back to praying. Well, not back to praying. It was continuous praying and saying, God, you brought me this far. You're not going to leave me. Quoting all the Bible scriptures under the sun, praying, fasting, did everything I knew to do. And it was difficult. I started sending out emails, and as you can imagine, there were no responses, or the responses were the automated responses. So I said, okay, Seth, back to the drawing board. You've got a story that's interesting. Attach your story to the emails. Bam. So I started getting a few responses from there. Sorry, Seth, we're not recruiting, but congratulations on everything you've achieved. Do keep in touch, blah, 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 blah. Some of them I managed to get a conversation flowing, but eventually it just died out. And I was like, okay, this isn't working. Let me try LinkedIn. So I then went on to LinkedIn and I started looking for any director, any recruitment person, anyone to do anything with an airline, handling agents, corporate, anywhere. I was looking, sending messages with my story. This is me. This is what I've done. I'd love to work for you. And eventually I was getting some responses. Some people weren't responding. I got hold of a guy from my company that I'm currently at now. And he's like, yeah, Seth, congratulations on everything you've achieved. I'm going to send your CV to our CEO and he's going to have a look at it. So a few days went by, I messaged him again. I was like, hey, mate, how you doing? Any feedback from the CEO? And he's like, sorry, Seth, we're looking for FAA pilots. Boom, there goes my dream. So I was like, I'm happy to work and get a conversion, to fly FAA planes. And then he was like, do that, get back to us. But the way he responded, he wasn't that enthusiastic. So I was like, okay, this LinkedIn thing isn't working. I then searched and found the list of every single charter company in the UK, found their phone numbers and phoned every single company one by one. I went through the list every day, phoning 5 to 7 companies. Hi, my name is Seth. This is what I've achieved. Can I speak to the person in charge of recruitment? Then they're like, oh, people are working from home, so you have to find, I can't transfer you to them. Then I was like, can I have a number for them? No, because of internal policy, we can't give you a phone number. Can I have an email for them? No, we can't give you their direct email because of the policy. And then they were just like, then I was like, okay, can I have a recruitment email to send my CV to? And eventually I got recruitment emails sent them. Fast forward to about October, what are we, 2021, October 2020, my company started recruiting EASA pilots again. And I was like, yes, finally my chance has come to get in. EASA pilots are being recruited here. So I then contacted them again. And I was like, hi, mates, how you doing? I've seen you're looking for EASA pilots. I'd still love to work with you. So he's like, yeah. He created a WhatsApp group chat with me and the CEO of the company. He posted everything. Lo and behold, the CEO didn't reply in the WhatsApp group. So a few days later, I messaged him again. I was like, any update? He's like, I hate this part of it. No, I never messaged him. He messaged me. It was Wednesday. And about 5 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I picked up my phone to see what the time was. And I saw a long message from him. But I saw the start. It's like, I hate this part. I was like, I'm not even going to read it. Threw the phone back down. I went back to sleep. And I woke up in the morning. I read the message. I was like, thanks, mate. I appreciate your time. But I still want to work for you. And he's like, yeah, if anything comes up in future, I'll let you know. So a few months went past to about December time. I messaged him. Hey, how you doing? Hope you're well. Has anyone fallen through? Is there any opportunity? And he's like, no, sorry, Seth, nothing. And then I messaged him 2 weeks later. Hey, mate, how you doing? Just checking in on you. Any news from the boss? I'm happy to also work in flight operations. And I'll use my platform as the youngest qualified pilot to advertise. And I'm happy to basically do anything that you need me to do and fly as well. And then he was eventually like, the boss is sick. He's not well. He's in hospital, blah, blah, blah. So I messaged him again, like 4 days later, like, hey, just a quick message to pass my regards to the boss. I hope he feels better. And then Christmas time came. I messaged him, Happy Christmas. And then New Year's came. I messaged him, Merry Christmas again. And then about 10 days later, I was on the phone to someone and I had saved his contact as his name and pilot job. So I saw him calling me while I was on the other call. I was like, why is this guy calling me? So I let it ring out. I was like, this guy's not hanging up the phone. So I said to them, hold on, let me answer this call. So I picked up the phone. I was like, hey, how you doing? He's like, Seth, I might have a position for you. Do you have money for your type rating available? And are you ready to start training this Sunday? Bear in mind, it's Friday morning and they need the money for the type rating. So I was like, yeah, I'll speak to my mum. But I didn't even want to go and tell my mum because it was the amount of money for the type rating. So I told my grand, she's like, do you have a job? Because I heard you speaking to someone about a job. She's like, yeah, there's a potential job, but they need money for a type rating. So my mum was sitting about a meter away from us. And she's like, so what are you going to do? I'm just like, I'll let it pass. I can't make my mum pay more money. And my mum was sitting about a meter when she was on a Zoom call. She's like, hold on. She's like, Seth, do you have the job? And I was like, I'm not sure, but they need 22 grand and there's no point in paying 22 grand. So she's like, no. If it gets you the job, I'll manage to get the money by the time they need it. And then he called me back and he's like, at 1:03 p.m. on that Friday, he called me back and he's like, Seth, what did he say? No, he's like, he picked up the phone and he's like, you owe me a beer. I was like, that's a weird way to answer the phone. I was like, why? What would I owe you a beer for? And then he's like, you're in. And it didn't click with me until, because the phone was on speaker, my mum was across me and my gran. And my mum was like, Seth, you've got the job. And then I was like, what? I didn't know how to act. My mum started crying. My gran started crying. And then he's like, we'll send you the contract this afternoon. David's going to be in touch with you. So I jumped in the shower and then my phone started ringing with an unknown UK number. So it was the boss calling me while I was in the shower. So I jumped out the shower, dripping wet, picked up the phone and I started speaking to him. And he's like, yeah, congratulations, Seth. You've done really well for yourself. Welcome to the team, blah, blah, blah. We'll send you the details. We'll send you everything. And yeah, that was the story, how I got the job. Now I'm flying for them. I volunteered to do work in the operations department and to make myself an asset to the company. But overall, for this story and everything, it just goes to show not only about persistence and resilience. I'm a strong believer that whatever God has planned for your life will come to pass. And if you're resistant,
yes,
and if you keep on praying, and there's certain Bible principles that are there in the Bible that have to happen. And that's what I lived on. I did what the Bible told me to. I was like, God, you told me to do this and you say you'll do this. So now it's your turn.
Wow.
And that's what I live by. And it's been amazing. Like the journey throughout has been fun. I'm flying with super experienced captains, and it's crazy. Some of the places I'm going to, I never imagined going to these type of places, interacting with these type of people. And the one thing that really stands out to me when I was praying for a job, there was one specific scripture that I always prayed, that your gift will make room for you before great men. And these are the type of people that I'm flying today, that the world classes these as great men, multimillionaires, billionaires, sports personnel, owners of the largest insurance companies. And it's been an amazing journey to say the least.
Wow. Seth Vanbeek, what an incredible story. You know, the interesting thing is, Seth, I've listened to a few of your interviews. I've watched a few of them, and I don't know if you've even I don't know if you've told it in depth. Like you've told your story, but this is you've really told this story, man. You've really told this story on this podcast today, and I really appreciate you for that. Because when I asked you for your story, I thought you might just maybe kind of paraphrase it a bit, but you told us everything to the point now where, like, yeah, man, thank you so much for that. Because a lot of people are listening to this and are watching you, and I really hope that you guys are inspired. Just such a beautiful story. And you're working your dream job today. I always make a joke that Seth is, when Seth is not here, I always say Seth is chilling at 37,000 feet in his Eclipse 550 jet, in European airspace. I'm just so happy for you, man, because a lot of people, at some point, at different stages in the sort of story that you told, would have given up. Whether it was at the start of training, towards the end of training, when you had to land in IMC conditions with everything going wrong. At any stage through your story, there was some, even when you finished your training and, you were home. And one thing that makes me feel emotional is when you didn't even want to tell your mom you might have a job because you're like, I don't want my mom to pay another extra £22,000. That is deep. You knew that you needed to do your type rating, but you're like, I don't want to tell my mom just in case.
Yeah.
That's serious. And your mom was on a Zoom call. She's like, no, hold on. I never said that. Have you got a job? Yes, I do. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Let's see what and your mom must be so proud now.
Yes, she's that's the one thing. She's always supportive. And every time when I'm flying, I always phone her. So my goal now was my grand's birthday to go, and I'm planning to take them both on a flight with me in the jet.
Let's go, man. That's gonna be so sick. And is that gonna be your first time on a private jet?
Yeah, that's gonna be the first time in a private jet.
Oh, that's gonna be with me. So incredible. And your company's totally cool with you doing that. It's just stand-up procedure. Oh my god.
Yeah. They were like, yes, Seth, no problem. When I spoke to the boss, he's like, just don't scare them.
Just that is so cool. Mate, now your story, man. The one thing that you did say, all right, I was gonna ask you, all right. So you mentioned, very early on, and I know the answer to this question because I've asked you this question before. When you were younger, you saw those pilots and you thought, you know what, these pilots are really cool. They've got all these beautiful women around them. You don't feel that way now, though, do you?
That was like my immature mindset, but it's more than just flying with good-looking girls.
Yeah.
But now I love what I do. It's more than whether there's 50 cabin crew or 2 cabin crew or no cabin crew. It's irrelevant to me. Now I love flying. It never feels like I have to go to work. I always tell everyone, flying is the only reason I'll get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and not complain.
Yeah.
To get me out of bed at that time, it has to be an emergency or someone's dead. There's no way that I'm getting out of bed at that time. Someone's dead. It depends what the emergency is. If it's not imminent danger, it can wait until I wake up.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that for sure, man. But yeah, flying is the only reason why someone. It's just, mate. Honestly, your story is something else. I'm so glad that you are living a dream. You said something about your talents and your gift makes way for you in the presence of great men. That is a fantastic part of the scripture that I myself. Is one of those philosophies in life, or you could say one of those sort of parables, if you want to call it that, or scriptures.
Yeah.
That I really relate to. But you're here now. You always talk about how you want to buy your mom a big house, I will make sure that you buy that woman a 5-bedroom mansion. She deserves nothing less. And Seth's mom,
Definitely, bro.
if you do end up watching this podcast, just know that myself and Nadine will ensure. And Seth is going to do it anyway. But we're just going to keep making sure that we remind him every now and again. Speaking of which, how's the mansion acquisition looking?
Probably the next 5 years.
Let's go. Also, you want to be the youngest captain in your airline now. You're working hard towards that, and I know that that's very possible. You're going to do that. You're going to be the youngest captain at your airline.
Yes, sir.
So you're working very hard towards that. I do watch your stories. One day I was looking at your story on Instagram, and I saw this, like, I don't know if it was an app somewhere. So I just saw all these mountains. And I messaged Seth. I was like, bro, Seth did not show the landing or anything. I just saw the mountains, and I just knew Seth was there. And I was like, I can't imagine what the landing would have been like. And Seth was like, dude, it was crazy. I was like, I can tell. It looked like there's mountains everywhere, bro. How did you do it? And Seth was just like, yeah, man. I just did it. Just got down, and yeah. I was like, this guy is cool, man. This guy is cool. This guy is a cool guy. Seth. So your story really depicts persistence, resilience. These words are very, very pivotal, because if you don't have those two things and other, skill sets, or or any other sort of these virtues inside of you, it's going to be very difficult for you to do something like pilot training, because pilot training is not just finding 90,000 pounds to train, or 100, whatever the fee is. It's not just motivating yourself to study and educate. It's being in pressurizing situations that you have to climb above. You literally sometimes have to maintain your calm. You talked about how when you got that plane down, in the simulator down, in your training, one of your your iconic moments in landing an aircraft, you aviated, you navigated, and you communicated, right?
Yeah.
And this is what they teach you in flight
That's
school,
it.
right? It's very important that no matter what you do, first you fly the aircraft, second you navigate. Where am I going to? Right, I'm in full control of this aircraft, so I'm flying it. I can tell, even though things are not working, the aileron has stopped working, and the pitch. Do you call it pitch trim? Is that what you called it?
Pitch trim, yeah.
Pitch trim isn't working. And all these other things, and you've got turbulence coming from this angle and that angle. You still have to fly the aircraft, and you then have to navigate to where you're going, and then you communicate with the necessary parties to ensure that you're doing the right thing. And that's good. You can relay that to life. In many ways, although Seth is young, I'm sure now he's had to mature a lot quicker than maybe some people, because he now has to take some of the things he's learning in aviation school and transcribing it to life. When you're really going through the thick of it, you're really, really good. When the going gets tough, you can apply some of these principles as well. Even though this is an aviation podcast, you can't say, hey, if it gets tough, let me just focus on what I can control. And that's what Seth does. Every day, Seth focuses on what he can control, and that's why he's successful. And that's also a great reason why he's a co-host on our show. So we are tremendously honored to have Seth on. He's a technical guy. Nadine always calls me the technical guy. I'm not the technical guy. Nadine certainly is maybe a little bit more technical than I am, but not technical at all. Seth is, so that's another reason why he's here. So shout out to big man Seth for doing that. Nadine, you were chilling with Zul Aviation at Dunsford Aerodrome this past weekend.
That's right.
So are you? Should we do it like the news, where you're reporting with the news? Should we do it that way? We're gonna cut over to
reporting live.
So reporting live, we're gonna go to Nadine. I call you Nadine, even though it's Nadine. Your surname, I'm not gonna reveal that. Reporting live, yeah, but reporting live, we're gonna go to Nadine, with stories from the Landor event from Dunsford Aerodrome. Nadine.
Over to you.
Like
Sorry, my bad. This is why I would have never had a serious go at a career in news, because I didn't say the over to you part. Over to you. Now you have to say Roger or Wilco or whatever.
I control.
Did you say I concur? So Nadine, what happened? So what happened this past weekend?
Too funny.
You got there really early. You got there like at 9:00, something like that.
Yes, I was at 9:00 session. I was the first session to go and see the aircraft.
Fantastic.
Go and see the lovely Queen of the Skies. City of Swansea is her name.
So a queen went to see a queen.
That's right. She's there. She's parked up. It was really nice, actually. So I was there on time, and I had the whole aircraft walk around, take pictures. We could view it. We could go inside. We couldn't touch the flight deck. We couldn't actually sit at the controls of the flight deck because she is still live. The flight deck is still live. She can still fly. So we was not allowed to sit in the cockpit seats. We was not allowed to touch the controls or touch any knobs. So that bit was taped off. But there was a captain in there, Simon. He was in there and he explained where he is, what he's doing. He works for BA, obviously. He's currently on furlough and he will be going back soon.
Fantastic stuff. And yeah, so we were talking about
organized. There was lots of ice cream vans.
Yeah, hot dogs, burgers, all that good stuff. Food.
Yeah.
That you
lots
did not.
Merchandise to buy. Lots of puzzles.
Great. Did you get anything? Did you buy anything at all?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that's cool. We were thinking. I mean,
I didn't buy any food or anything like that.
Yeah. Seth knows this. We're starting an online store. It's going to be called ATAP Universe. So all of his Aviation Pod Universe, and on the store, people will be able to purchase our T-shirts and any other cool gear that you can associate yourself with the show. But yeah, that would have been cool if you had things ready for you to bring down, Nadine. But it's good that you went there and saw the experience. You met up with Zul for the first time. What was that like?
I did. He's a cool guy. We got to speak here. We took some photographs in business class.
Yeah.
Pretending we had champagne. Pretending we was going somewhere. When we went nowhere.
We
went nowhere. It was fun. It was quite very well organized as well.
I would have. Shout out to Zul. I've heard amazing things about what you did on Saturday, May. So well done. If I was in business class that day and I took pictures, I would have posted a caption on Instagram that said, "Take me back," and or just something to confuse everyone, to make everybody feel like I'm really in business class going somewhere. But of course, the plane was on the ground, and that's really cool. You guys did try to FaceTime me on the Saturday. I was in radio, so I couldn't pick up. But I'm glad that you had that experience, Nadine. Part of what our podcast would like to achieve once we really get some steam behind us is to do events as well. You can't have a guy like Seth and a lady like Nadine who has a master's in aviation. You can't have people like this and not through events where we want to encourage our community, wherever we see any sort of, whether it's the minorities within a particular community, whether that's, Black people, Asian people, whether that's women. We want everybody to feel that aviation is accessible to them. And it doesn't appear to me, anyway, that there's quite a lot of podcasts in the UK that have or that talk about aviation or aviation topics. We might be one of the sort of upcoming ones. We might even be the only upcoming one. And we want to set ourselves a target, a goal that within a year's time, we will be well known within our community. Kids, anyone can listen to the podcast, watch the show and go, this is the reason why I wanted to be a pilot. I listened to Seth Vanbeek speak on episode 1 and history motivated me. I've listened to Nadine over the years or whatever amount of time we're doing this for. And she's encouraged me as a woman to do this. These guys are Africans, they're doing it. Why can't I do it? And it doesn't, eliminate anybody else from any other part of the world. But it's just, if we're able to do it, you can. And I mentioned to Nadine earlier on today that I want to go ahead and look at ways to get current with my private pilot's license again. Maybe look at doing some RS building and, maybe do my IFR. Once some money starts coming in, why not? Why not? I might not be able to get up as high as 37,000 feet like Seth in the Eclipse. But I promise you, I'll be able to get as far as maybe 6,000 or 7,000, and that's cool. That's good enough. I'll be able to
10. You can make it up to 10. 100.
100 is nice. You want to try and avoid the 12.5 as much as possible because of hypoxia, but 10 is good. And what we were talking about this the other day, Seth, as well, is that with sort of flying and some of your goals and ambitions, you actually have a desire to do something really cool in Africa. I don't want to say what it is. I want you to explain what it is. So why don't you go ahead and tell people? Because this is something that is in your future plans as well.
Yeah. So basically my goal one day is to open a flight school where the underprivileged in Africa are able to train completely for free because of the influence and the following that I've gained through the platform that I have. I get a lot of messages, especially from people from Zimbabwe, and they're like, Seth, I want to be a pilot and I can't afford it. Is there any scholarships? Is there anywhere that I can train? And these guys could be the next best captain, the next youngest commercial pilot, the next youngest qualified captain, the next youngest qualified female pilot, the next best thing in aviation, the next person to invent an electrically powered aircraft. But without being given the opportunity, we never know what they will do. It's like a butterfly. There's always a story I go back to, like before a butterfly turns into a butterfly that's in the cocoon. If you help it out of the cocoon, its wings won't get this required liquid that it gives in order to fly and develop. So that's what happened to a lot of these guys. They have so much potential, but they're not able to be unleashed because they don't have the funds, they don't have the opportunities. They're not given that thing to say, okay, here, go and try this. So my goal is to one day start a flight school where these guys are able to train completely for free and then transition them over into an airline. So be in partnership with a few airlines across the world. But these guys and girls who will be coming through the program will be the best of the best. Nothing less than 95% across the theory subjects, first-time passes. They know everything about it, but not only the technical aspect, because aviation is not truly technical. It's also having the mind to think, the composure. So they'll go through grueling process in order to get accepted onto the program and then transition into an airline. And it's really touching. Sometimes I get messages from people. There's one message that really hit home with me. This guy messaged me. He's like, Seth, I'd really love to be a pilot. Both my parents are dead. I live with my grandparents and I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And at that point, I remembered that this is why God's given me this platform, in order to make a difference, to use the platform that I've been given to reach out to people, to interact with people who have the funds, even if I'm not self-funding it, to find investors who will be willing to invest into such a project, to see that in the long run, it's going to be beneficial. And maybe even one day starting our own airline and getting these guys to work in our airline and then them paying back the training from their salary, just to give them that opportunity to get in the industry. At least when we're flying with them, we know that these guys will have been trained by us. They're the best of the best. We know the mindset. Yeah, exactly. We know what they believe in, how they've been taught. And that's the one thing that we'll be able to control.
Yes, sir. I mean, you're talking about, having the right ethos, the right, and also having the right attitude towards the way of doing things. They always say in companies that the right attitudes trickle down from the top, right? So you've got the managers at the top of every company. What they do trickles down to the employees. So if the managers and the CEOs of a company are doing the right things and are exhibiting the right behaviors trickle down into the staff. So if you're training your guys in the way that you want them to perform, then you're going to have that peace of mind that not only have I got the cream of the crop, because these guys are 95% and up, but also I've given them the training that I would have wanted to receive. So therefore, if I put them, in a closed door cockpit scenario, they're going to get that plane up and down in any condition. And that's what you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in our industry, safety always comes first. And Seth, I have no doubt in my mind that if that's your goal, you're going to achieve it. You already have a proven track record of accomplishing everything you set your mind to. And that's what we do here, on the All Things Aviation Pod. We are go-getters. We are truly passionate about what we do. We are also creating content now. We really hope that you are enjoying our content. I'm going to say it for the second time. If you've come this far in this podcast today, make sure that you like, you subscribe, you share. Talk about us on Instagram. Yeah, share our stuff with everyone that you know. And it might be someone's son or someone's niece and nephew or someone's godson or goddaughter that might want to be a pilot or a helicopter pilot or an air traffic controller that sees this and goes, yep, I'm convinced now that this is what I want to do. So make sure you share our content. Nadine, we've got about 6 minutes and 30 seconds till the show ends. 29 seconds, 28, 27. But you had some news. So over to you. You had an incredible story that we wanted to go over.
Yes, a 56-year-old plane spotter, aviation enthusiast and photographer, Mr. Ian Simpson, he spotted something very interesting when he was taking his photographs of RAF base at Lakenheath.
What did he spot?
Well, one of the fighter jets took off. Lots of sparks flew out. Lots of flames. It took off, and he was expecting the aircraft to return back to base. It didn't. He was surprised. He thought, "Hold on a minute, that's not right. I've been watching aircrafts for a long time. That's not right." And he was also listening in to the communication, and he thought that someone would mention it, and no one did anything. He contacted the control tower. So he rang the switchboard. They went through to flight operations, who contacted the pilot, and he told him what he saw. And when they went to go and check the aircraft, it was actually damaged. What was it? I can't actually remember the bit that was actually damaged.
Yeah.
But there was actually a bit of damage wrong with the engine.
Right. So Ian Simpson managed to save lives that day, because if that plane had gone down or anything had happened, quite a lot of people would have been hurt from that one scenario. Because aviation, the way, it's all about a series of events. One thing leads to another, and it's a knock-on effect. It just keeps getting worse and worse. And if you fail to address it right there and then, it could be detrimental to not just your life, but whoever's life is down there below that you're going to eventually impact. And this is imperative because, I've given this considerable thought. And I thought, plane spotters are already really cool. They give us great content for free, whether it's videos or photos. Back in the day when I was growing up, you used to have to buy magazines for 10 euros, 15 euros. You have to buy plane spotter. You'd buy these magazines and go geek out on them. All right. But nowadays, if you've got Instagram, you've got thousands of pages to follow. And some of these guys are so good that they're not just taking videos and audio and sometimes he said he was able to listen in on the conversation. I bet he probably had a radio. So they're sometimes even playing you ATC recordings so you can hear cool conversations with captains or pilots, and air traffic control. They're taking good videos, good photographs, editing them nicely. It's just great. You never need to buy a magazine anymore. That business model with the magazine is probably done now. So shout out to them for doing things like that. But second of all, in this particular instance, Ian Simpson has saved lives. Okay, so I would like to get Ian Simpson on the pod. So Nadine, let's see if we can organize for Mr. Ian Simpson to come and tell us his story and how it feels to be a hero, essentially, right? Seth, what do you think?
That's a great idea, bro. And as you said, he could have saved hundreds, if not thousands of lives if that aircraft had gone down.
Yeah.
And probably prevented any further damage to a multi-million-dollar aircraft and save the pilot's life.
Yep.
If you save one life, it's more than enough.
It's more than enough. An F-15, like you said, is a multi-million-dollar aircraft. So, you've and it's all about that series of events. If that continued to get worse and worse and worse, eventually something bad would have happened. So it's really good that Ian was in the right place at the right time. Would you agree, guys? It was in the right place at the right time. Plane spotting. But yeah, with that said, guys, we've got about 3 minutes to go till before the show ends. I wonder, did you guys want to plug anything before we go? I know you've got separate Instagram pages. Would you like to shout those out, and then we can pop that in post-production as well?
All good, bro.
All good, bro. Well, so that's at Seth. Seth is so popular, he doesn't want any more followers. That's what that means, okay? Seth is getting way too many notifications. But you can find Seth Vanbeek on Instagram at just that. So it's SETH. If I'm not mistaken, there's an underscore and then Vanbeek, VANBEEK. Now, you don't even have to put the underscore. He'll come up anyway. And you should see a DP of a guy standing beside an aircraft. That's Seth. There's only one in the world. You've also got Nadine. Her handle it's spelt Nadine, literally ITSSPELTNADEANE. Okay, get it right. Put some respect on my people, please. Otherwise, I'm going to come find you and talk about aviation. That's what I can do. But no, this has been an incredible fun time with my people. So Seth, well, I'll be in London tomorrow. I'm meeting with Nadine for the first time. I've never met Nadine in real life. I'll be meeting her tomorrow. So that's going to be fun. But also,
you say, oh.
my feeling exactly. We're going to meet up. Trust me to jump in on the joke, bro. Vas is still hot. Nobody's safe. Well, we might be hanging out with Zul Aviation as well. But with that said, guys, that's it from us today. It's been absolutely lovely having you. Thanks for your eyes and your ears. Please enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch you again this time next week. This is the All Things Aviation Pod. Take care. Bye-bye.